actually know a young girl. She's a DACA recipient, and I asked her if it would be possible for me to interview her mother, to actually speak to her mother about how she came into this country, because I realized that despite all of this rhetoric and us talking about the border issues, I don't think there's really anybody in America that understands how the process takes place. How does an illegal migrant get into this country? And so I asked her, and I had a conversation that absolutely blew my mind. And I want you guys to now understand how it happens. This particular individual started her journey in Guatemala. She was a Guatemalan citizen. She now has status in America because she's been here long enough, and she married an American person. But at this time, she was a Guatemalan citizen who decided to make the trek up to America. So what happens is she paid $3,000 to a cartel member. The cartel gets $3,000. And the first step of the process is that if you paid that entry fee, you meet at a farm in Guatemala, right? So in her home country, she met at a farm, and they wait for 200 other people to join up, other migrants that are looking to make the trek into America. Once the 200 people meet, a massive truck arrives that's transporting a lightweight good, right? This lightweight good for her was plastic cups. They make sure that this massive truck has something that's lightweight, because beneath the truck, hollowed out, is an area where 200 migrants pack themselves in. They're packed in, they're all sitting down in a V shape so they can stack on top of each other. During that period, they actually transport for 24 hours across Mexico. So for 24 hours, all they're given is a bottle of water, and there's also a bucket in the back if they have to go to the bathroom. That's it. And there are various truck stops where the Mexicans that are at these checkpoints check, and they start to spray the bottom of the truck, she says to me. So you have people that work for the Mexican government that are actually trying to see if there are illegal aliens in these trucks. And the way that they're able to discern that is by spraying pepper spray at the bottom. This is interesting because what they do inside is they cover their mouths and they do their best not to cough. It instantly makes you cough. And if they don't hear any coughing, they go, okay, there must be no migrants in this truck. So what she says is that while they're in there, the coyote that is taking them tells them, if you cough, you will get your throat slit. That happens 10 times. There are 10 various stops where Mexican police stop and spray underneath this truck. And then they arrive 24 hours later into a bodega. They stay at that bodega, which has a house in the back. That house fits approximately 500 people, she said. And they wait for 10 days to resume their journey before another truck arrives. And they pack in, and they repeat the same process, same exact process of the coyotes underneath the truck for another 24 to 26 hours until they arrive at the last bodega. And this is the part of the journey where they're in the desert. They are to run across the desert for 5 days. They are handed backpacks, and each of them is given 2 gallons of water and a pack of what she described to me like hot dogs or sausage, a pack of sausage and hot dogs per person. And that's all you get. 5 days in the desert, you're going to be on foot and you're going to be running. While they were running, she says, you just look around and you see other people that have died along the desert that are dead, and various people that are in your group die as well. She recalled to me one man who just said, I'm too tired, I can't go on any further, and he died. Another woman who got tired and said, I can't go another step, and they died, because the coyotes are not going to wait for you. If you're going to die in the desert, you die. But everyone else keeps moving. What's really fascinating about that is that when they reach the end, not everybody makes it, she did, is that they breathe a sigh of relief. She entered in through Arizona. Once you actually hit American soil, once you're close to the American border, that's the good part of the journey. They know that once they're in there, they're safe. They're absolutely fine. She said when she arrived through Arizona, there's an SUV, a nice SUV that was awaiting for them. And they packed in 24 people. An American driver, an American citizen, picks them up in a nice SUV and simply drives them to various points. She said her particular car, 24 people went to Los Angeles. Now, if you're doubting the story, if it sounds surreal, I thought the exact same thing. This sounds crazy. But then I recalled a recent story that came out of California where one of these SUVs that she's talking about a few weeks ago got into a collision, and about 13 of the migrants died, and there were 25 of them packed into the SUV, just as she explained to me. So this process is being repeated. This is what it takes to get into America. When they arrived in Los Angeles, you can describe that situation as a halfway house, right? When they got into Los Angeles, there's a house where there's hundreds of them all packed in, and the coyote makes individual phone calls back home to Guatemala to whoever it is they have back home, and they say, okay, transfer the remaining $3,000. Your loved one made it. And if you want me to release them, you need to transfer the rest of the money. So in total, it's $6,000. It costs $6,000. That was 13 years ago, by the way, I should mention. And when the last bit of the funds is released to the coyote, then they await for other people to come and pick them up and disperse them across the United States. They're given different states. Some of them are sent to Tennessee. Some of them are sent to Virginia. Some of them are sent to Maryland. Some of them are sent to Texas. She was sent to Virginia. And when she got to Virginia, they had a job lined up for her. What I am describing to you, of course, is one person's story. And other than her telling me it, I can't really attest to it. It's one person's story that makes it very clear that what is happening at our border is not just happening at our border, it's happening throughout the United States. It's beyond a crisis, it's a network of individuals. And let's make no mistake here, these people are being invited by Americans. They are terrified during the journey by Mexicans. They're afraid of Mexican authorities. I think for the last 5 years, I have been saying, why aren't the Mexicans doing anything? You might be watching this thinking the same thing, right? Why are the Mexicans allowing these migrants to race through Mexico? They're not allowing it. We're allowing it. They're spraying pepper spray. We're the ones allowing it. They are relieved and reassured by Americans, and that should explain a lot to you. That should explain the political environment that we're in today. That should explain to you why when then candidate Trump got onto a platform and said, I'm going to build a wall, the politicians and the news networks exploded. He was attacked viciously. They did not want that wall built. They still don't want that wall built. Why? I think because illegal immigration is actually a well-run business operation, and it operates the most efficiently on the American side of the border. Americans, in my view, are working with the cartels. Now, this is my suspicion. I suspect that. I can't confirm it, but I suspect that the cartel members have relationships with American politicians, and that would make sense. It would make sense as to why these migrants, when they get into the country, are being offered sanctuary cities, hotel rooms, college tuitions, you name it, right? I don't work for the United States government. I don't work for the CIA. I don't work for the FBI. I'm not an employee of the DOJ. I simply asked a question. What happened? If I was able to learn all of that via a 1-hour conversation, do you really believe that our Department of Justice and FBI don't know what's going on? Do you actually believe that the CIA has no idea what's going on? Do you actually believe that in Los Angeles, the city where the cops will arrive on your door if you've got too many people inside, if you're gathering too many people in the middle of coronavirus, that they don't know that there are houses packed with hundreds of migrants inside of them? I don't buy that for 1 second. You would think that we would be reading stories about various government agencies who are supposed to defend us against international threats. You'd think that we'd be reading stories about them swooping into these types of halfway homes and shutting down these illegal operations, but we don't. Instead, our newsfeed is polluted with stories about these politicians doing all that they can to protect the cartel business with their calls for open borders because it's humane. And if I am correct, by the way, the border issue for these politicians is not a crisis. It's a business transaction. It seems really obvious to me that the cartels aren't just controlling the American borders, they're also controlling aspects of American politics. It's obviously not a coincidence that the very same time that tens and thousands of undocumented immigrants are walking across our border, Democrats are fighting tooth and nail to ensure that voter ID is not a requirement in this country. The answer is simple. The cartels want money and the Democrats want power.